Go.
This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking, one of the most talked about Republican talk show hosts in the South Shore, according to the Boston Broadside newspaper. I decided to respond to David Heike, who is a hypocrite and a phony, and a liar. Mr. Heike ran for Republican State Committee in the year 2010, and we're not going to be taking calls today. Mr. Heike ran for a state committee in the year 2010. He then, 2008, excuse me, and he's carried a grudge since that. Mr. Heike, to examine his voter history, which he is a fraud, said he was a lifelong Republican. The first primary that he ever voted in was the 2008 primary when he was running for Republican State Committee. He never donated, he never participated, but he thought he should be the state committee man from the 2nd Plymouth Bristol district. He was rejected by the voters of that district. Mr. Heike then talks about people with criminal records. Go to the Brockton District Court and pull Mr. Heike's criminal record. He has one. Hypocritical beyond belief. Then Mr. Heike talks about being a good Republican. In the last United States Senate primary, when there were 3 candidates, according to records obtained by the city of Brockton, Mr. Heike didn't even vote in the Republican primary for U.S. Senate. He is a phony. He then attempted to interfere with my contractual relationship with clients, actionable up to 10 years. He interfered with those relations, telling them to report me to the Board of Bar Overseers. I am not going to sit back and have Mr. Heike continue to cast aspersions on my character. I will sue Mr. Heike in court very shortly. I am going to bring a lawsuit against him for making misstatement of facts and start deposing people. Mr. Heike is a fraud at best, a liar at best. He is the henchman for Jeff Deal, another former Democrat that wishes to take over the Republican Party. People that didn't make it in the Democratic Party now wish to take over the Republican Party. Mr. Heike registered to vote according to records obtained by this station in 1996 in Plymouth. He did not vote in any local elections in Plymouth. He did not vote for the first time as a Republican to 2008. Mr. Heike went on then to run for office and was elected ward chairman, and it was the first time the Ward 1 committee lost membership. Mr. Heike then ran for treasurer of the Ward 1 committee. Didn't even open a bank account. There was no money raised. Mr. Heike is a title searcher and a title seeker with no substance to what he does. He borders on libelous statements that are going to be taken, action will be taken if he continues. I'll own his house on Fairview Ave if it continues. Mr. Heike better not mention my name to anyone again. The law of libel allows you to collect, if you're using truthful statements even, if they're done in an error, to cast aspersions on somebody's character. Mr. Heike then made fraudulent statements about his voter history. He talked about voter history that would go on and how he was a lifelong Republican. Untrue. The first time he voted in the Republican primary was 2008 when he ran against me. Mr. Heike is a fraud. Somebody that doesn't deserve to be listened to. He runs a phony internet station with people who want to attack people all the time. David Heike is somebody that claims, he's called the FBI at one point on me. I have the official records out of the, under a Freedom of Information request from the FBI where he called. If Mr. Heike would call the FBI on me, he'd call on anybody. Anybody associated with Mr. Heike should be wary. He's an FBI caller. He went to the FBI. I will disclose the record along with the criminal record and down the road if it continues. Mr. Heike lives in a glass house and is a phony. He is somebody that shouldn't be involved. He is somebody that is an abuser of discretion. He abuses any position that he gains. Once he gains the position, he does no work. Mr. Heike is a total phony, a fraudster. I recently, this former state committee woman wrote to me, and I don't know if I kept the letter, and she said after she went to City Hall and found out he had never been registered, she felt he had lied to her, which was probably a pattern of Mr. Heike's life. He is a fraud from the word go. He is an FBI caller. He's a hypocrite. He has a criminal record. Look at his voter history. There isn't anything he says that's fact. He thought he should be state committee man when he never even helped any Republican. Now he's associated as the henchman for Jeff Deal. David Heike is a phony. We will not be taking phone calls today at 508-822-1106. So we will not be listening in. We see the lines are lighting up, but we are not going to be taking any calls today. We are going to talk about David Heike's character. That's what this show is about. Voter history, lies, criminal record, go to the Brockton District Court, put in David Heike, pull the record. It is what it is. He talks about other people, but he lives in a glass house. He is the henchman for Jeff Deal. He didn't vote according to the official records in the Senate race. There were 3 candidates, a member of the ward committee, and can you believe he didn't even vote in the Senate primary? Shame, shame, shame. This is Larry Novak. We're going to have a guest today that who knows David Heike. Is en route now better than anyone. He worked on his campaigns. He claims that that Mr. Heike claims that Alan Green and I got him fired from State Street Bank. Another misstatement of fact. After examining what happened at State Street Bank, he used corporate assets in a state committee race and was terminated. It is a federal campaign violation to use those assets. So therefore, he was let go at State Street Bank. There is more to come out of Mr. Heike, and every time that he mentions my name, I am going to now start taking legal action. Because Mr. Heike, you live in a glass house. You are a phony at best. You are a liar at best. You tell half-truths to everybody. Those are the records. And this is my opinion of you, and I'm not going to sit back and allow you to continue to attack me. This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking. We will not be taking any phone calls today, so people calling will not be able to get through. 508 is our number, so please cease 822-1106. We are discussing the character of David Heike, and we are going to continue to go after people that are hypocritical and live in glass houses. When you examine their personal lives, there's a lot to be found. People that live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. Now, he is a henchman for Jeff Deal, and his attack was orchestrated probably by the dirtiest trickster of them all, Holy Robichaud, on his attack on me recently. So therefore, Jeff, you should realize that he didn't even vote in the Senate primary. He ignored the vote and didn't even have the, as a member of a ward committee, didn't vote. Oh, he's a piece of work, David Heike. The first time he ever voted in the Republican primary was when he ran for state committee. what colossal nerve it takes to run for state committee when you've never participated or made a donation. The word phony is an understatement of what Mr. Heike is. Those things are just a tip of the iceberg. If we get into a lawsuit, we'll be able to dig a lot deeper into Mr. Heike's conduct. He claimed he was passed over. He told somebody for a military promotion to an officer. He denied it. There is nothing in the record that any offer was ever made. Another misstatement of fact. Therefore, people should be leery of David Heike. Anybody that calls the FBI on people is not a good human being. He is somebody that is not going to be, nor should he ever be in a position of power. Because if he is, he will simply use that power to promote a far right-wing agenda that nobody agrees with. This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking, one of the most talked about Republican shows of the South Shore. We're going to examine some of those other people that supported Mr. Heike. We're in the process of looking into them also. It's time to tell it like it is and set the record straight. This record will be put permanently on YouTube so that people can look at it. So this is Larry Novak. Now I want to go back and look at Mr. Heike's record. He registers to vote in 1996 in Plymouth. He doesn't vote then. He doesn't vote in 1998 state election. Well, he does, excuse me. He votes in the 96 election for president in Plymouth. He votes in the 98 election, but nothing in the, no Republican primary. In 1996, there was a Republican primary for president. He didn't vote in it. In 1998, there was a Republican primary. He didn't vote in it. In the year 2000, there was a Republican primary. He didn't vote in it. He votes in the, doesn't vote again to 2003, moves to Brockton. There are local elections. He doesn't vote in any of those local elections. Then he goes on to 2000, votes in 2004, state election, not in a Republican primary. He votes in 2005 local election. He votes in the local election again in 2005 in Brockton. He votes in the primary in September and votes in the final in September. In 2006, he votes in the state election, doesn't vote in the primary. In 2007, he votes in the local elections in Brockton. The first Republican primary he voted in, contrary to what he told people, is 2008 when he ran for Republican state committee man. Who is David kidding? He's only kidding himself that he hasn't and will not, has never voted in a Republican primary before that. In a hotly contested Senate primary in 2018, who was missing from voting according to the official records? David Heike. He's a real committed Republican, isn't he? He really is a wonder boy. He gives $2,000 to Jeff Deal and then doesn't even bother to vote for him in the Senate primary. Wow, what a piece of work he is. You know, people should pull some of these records that live in glass houses. And he wishes to say things about me. Let him say them. David, listen to me. You better go to talk to a lawyer before you publish anything else, or I'll own your house on Fairview Ave. You get into a libel lawsuit, it will cost you $250,000 to defend it. I'm putting you on notice. Continue to attack, and we'll see you in court. This is over. I will not hesitate to file the lawsuit, and you'll have to defend it before a Superior Court judge. Let's tell it like it is, David. We are tired of you. We are tired of the half-truths, the innuendos, and your total fraud that you are. You know, the official records speak for themselves. Anyone will go down to Brockton District Court and pull the files. They will hand them to you. David, it's time to tell it like it is, not your version of everything. We are expecting Alan Green, who will go on to tell you that Mr. Heike told him that David Heike, was fired for something Larry Novak and Alan Green did. Well, David, if we get into a lawsuit, those records will be obtained out of State Street Bank. We never made any such calls. I think it was an internal something that went on and you got audited. This is Larry Novak with, politically speaking, one of the most talked about Republican shows in the South Shore. Moving on, I'm not going to waste the whole half hour on David Heike. He's not somebody that's worthwhile to waste on. He's somebody that you don't need to respond to. The records speak volumes. I have the records if anybody wants them. And if it continues, I will mail them out to everybody in the city of Brockton. This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking, one of the most talked about Republican shows. We are waiting for a guest that's probably coming at 11:30. And I did want to go back and, and just be wary that it's somebody that calls the FBI on people will call on anybody. It goes to thing as character. You interfere if somebody's not doing anything. You make wild allegations that the agent took down, which are actionable. Well, you just don't let it go on. It goes back to 11 years. 11 years ago, he ran for state committee. He is so angry that he lost, he still harbors a grudge. What does that tell you about the character of the individual? You simply, when you lose an election, move on, wish the other side well, and drop it. Harboring grudges accomplishes nothing. When you were in charge of the Brockton Ward 1 committee, it lost membership. When you became treasurer, you failed to even open a bank account. You failed to raise any money. Why take the position if you weren't going to do it? We became the 5th best under Ward 1 when I took it back over in the state. We will file a record amount of things. The henchmen that support Jeff Deal and Brockton had 16 members. Today, there is 196 being filed with the Secretary of State and 2 wards left to be, 1 ward has 15 and we'll finish it over the weekend. Most wards, let's go through them. Ward 1, under their leadership, hit 8. Under my leadership, we're filing a slate of 35. Ward 2 presently has 15. We will increase it to 35 before the weekend is over. Ward 3 filed 34. We saved a spot for somebody. Ward 4, I haven't done it yet. Ward 5 filed 35. Ward 6 filed 35. Ward 7 filed 35. We are seeing that committee come back. Under their far-out leadership, the Republican Party lost half of the enrollment in the city of Brockton. It's because their vision of where Brockton should go and what should be done isn't the mainstream. People are coming back to the Republican Party since they will have no more interaction with it. An executive committee voted to drop Mr. Heike from its leadership. David Heike is a fraud of the worst order. And I just end this with the warning, litigation is expensive. It will be done if needed. It will happen. And you know what? Let him have to pay $250,000 to defend his actions. We are not going to take it anymore. Now moving on, Alan, did you know that David Heike, according to Cindy, never voted in the Republican primary this year for Senate. He abstained. He didn't vote. Alan, did you, I have Alan Green who knows him. We're not taking calls today, and the phones have been ringing off the hook, Alan. Did you know, Alan, that did you have anything to do with David Heike being fired from State Street Bank?
At that time, I was a courier. The only one I knew at State Street Bank was the dockmaster.
Did you
and I had nothing. I couldn't get myself a job there. Where would I get the juice to get him fired?
So you had nothing to do with it?
Nothing to do at all.
So the statement that you had him fired that he made to you is not truthful. Is that correct?
It's a lie.
It's a total misstatement of fact. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
And he said you and your boss, meaning me, I never had anything to do with it, and I want him to produce the records that show that we did.
And I never worked for you, so how can you be my boss?
That's correct.
He also worked for, what's it, Santander? Or?
I don't know about that, so good.
That word has been spreading around that I got him fired from that too.
Well, I don't know why. I mean, he would make those statements. They're not truthful. And you know, it's time to push back legally. It isn't allowed somebody to walk over your reputation and that makes misstatements of fact. It's time to tell it like it is. Now you're running for a school committee.
Well, I got some more things for David Heike. We had a fundraiser at the VFW in Brockton on North Quincy Street. Everybody that I said would come came and paid. His people didn't show. He lost money. He blames me for doing it.
But Alan, the issue is far different than that. It's the lack of leadership. He headed Ward 1, and there was a decrease in membership. He headed Ward 1 as treasurer and never even opened a bank account.
I know.
I mean, how hypocritical. He talks about being a big Republican. He's on a ward committee, and according to the official record, he didn't vote in the primary in 18. He voted in the general, but not in the primary. There were 3 candidates in the primary in 18. Jeff Deal, Beth Lindstrom, and John Kingston. Well, he didn't even exercise as a member of the ward committee his right to vote. It's unbelievable.
And he wants to go higher.
Higher? He's unelectable with his right-wing viewpoint. This is Massachusetts. It isn't, and it isn't a conservative state. David Heike is a fraud of the word go. But I'm not going to spend any more time on David Heike. We are not taking calls today. This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking. So the calls coming in will not be answered. They've been ringing off the hook.
You must have had 30 already.
Got 30 already. So we are moving on.
Was one of them David Heike, I hope?
28 or 29 of them are David Heike.
I'm sure that's the case. Sure, it's David Heike calling in, and we're not going to give him free airtime. So let's go on with this.
Oh, I get more about David Heike if you want.
No, it's not worth the thing. He is somebody that never will be and never was. He is the henchman for Jeff Deal, and it's very interesting. He's the people around Jeff Deal, but that will be for another discussion.
Isn't Jeff Deal's wife, she was a Democrat 2 years ago, and now she's running?
Jeff Deal was the Democrat, and not his wife. But it talks about commitment to a Republican Party. It talks about the takeover of former Democrats who want to push out long-term Republican leaders of the party. It talks about commitment. It talks about actually people's beliefs. What do they believe? Now they come late in life. Will they come later in life and then change those core convictions? That's what you've got to wonder. You have to call that into account. This is Larry Novak, and I'm with Alan Green right now. He's running for the school committee in Ward 3 in the city of Brockton. Alan, what are your vision for the schools, and what do you want to do as school committee man?
going door to door and talking to people, their main concern are their kids being threatened by bullies.
Well, I can understand that.
Yeah.
Bullies on ants and that try to bully other people. It's time that they be indicted. It's time that the district attorney starts looking in. We have to take a short break, and we'll be back with Alan Green shortly.
Of the game, the Trojans 60.
His end. Savior, 1-3 for Foley. Hits! Shoots, scores! McCormick scores again! On the rebound.
This is Larry Novak, back with Politically Speaking. My guest today is Alan Green. He's a candidate for Ward 3 School Committee. Alan, what is your vision? Why do you want to be on the Brockton School Committee?
Well, the person that's in there now is just, my opinion, is just doing networking for his insurance company. He hasn't been around to meet the voters. They've never seen him. They throw a few signs up, but nobody knows who he is. One person I met in the past 2 weeks, going door to door, is voting for him.
Well, that's interesting. That's not a...
That's a sitting school committee person.
Right. I mean, you would think you'd have much broader base of support. And have you knocked on a lot of doors?
Yeah, yesterday was 52. Today I expect to do 60.
Yeah, you do a little bit more each day. That's all you can do. You're exhausted from it, but...
You got to do it if you want to win.
That's it. I mean, and do you have many lights left?
Few hundred, yes. I bought 600.
Right.
And they're dwindling down.
Which you got to prepare the stickers every night, too.
Well, you got to take the boxes apart. You got to take the cases apart.
Right, and then put it back together. Yeah. And, which is a good thing.
Everybody likes it.
Yes. Now, what do you think the school committee can do different?
Oh, they can try and enforce the rules on getting scholarships for the kids that are graduating. I've dropped off the list of scholarships that are available in Brockton to people I know, and their kids didn't know about most of those scholarships. Really? They're not actively recruiting people to get them.
Right.
As a chairman of my VFW in Bridgewater, I know for a fact I'm giving out money. I don't have, on some schools, I don't have one applicant.
That's terrible. Because the cost of education is...
What is a good book in a real college?
Outrageous today.
Yeah, in a real college, what's a book cost?
About $200.
Yeah. Online is about like 80.
More?
Than that, $250 to $300 for real courses.
That's a lot of money, books.
Yeah, and you got to get a new one for each class, so you get 5 classes.
A friend of mine is at Worcester Polytech, first semester books, 4 courses, okay? $890.
That's ridiculous.
For 4 books.
That is absolutely ridiculous.
You don't even get the money back.
I mean, because, you know, kids don't have that kind of money in their parents.
One of the biggest deals, sweetheart deals that's going on in colleges is professors and book companies. They sell the books, make huge profits, the professors get part of the money, and then at the end of the semester, they change the book so that the kids cannot resell the book.
That way they make more money.
They make more money.
That's terrible.
It's a scandal in the wait. It's going to break nationally that this is happening. There's hundreds of professors that are doing this.
Definitely.
Which is not a good thing because the books should be the same book for years.
At least should be good for a while.
Well,
I can see a change of book.
3 or 4 years
Yeah.
the book should be good for. Joey?
I've spent quite a bit on books as well. I think somewhere around $200, $250.
A book? I mean,
No, for all of them. I think I got like 3 or 4 books one semester, and it was about $250.
that's a lot of money.
Yeah. When my son was at BU, he started his undergrad in the fall of '88. He got a used book, and then the upperclassmen were selling Xerox copies of the new pages.
Wow.
So there are ways to get around it.
But that's still a lot of cash for a family to come up with. And if there's, struggling in the family, it's very difficult to pay for all this.
Well, it was $24,000 a year back in '88 at VU.
And I think it's 60 now, isn't it?
Oi,
I mean, how does the average family, if you go to a school that costs 60,000, actually pay for that?
student loans, put your house up for a second mortgage.
And then you got to pay the mortgage off or take another 30 years. And,
There's nothing we can do right now.
I mean, the cost of education is out of control. The cost of secondary education is beyond belief. That's why these independent colleges are not surviving. It's costing too much money. Brockton has a problem with dropping test scores. How would you address that?
Well, they've got to get back to the basics. To begin with, if they can't write a sentence, can't put a paragraph together, they can't add, subtract, multiply, divide, even a square root. You talk to that and which button is that on the calculator? They don't know how to do it without
The calculator.
the calculator.
Got a bigger problem than that.
They can't read.
They can't write their name because they don't teach penmanship anymore.
That's a disgrace.
They don't teach civics either.
I think one of the proposals you should make is English immersion, and
Definitely.
and I think that after in a short period of time, children should be put in classes and taught in English. I think that civics should be taught in the classroom. We should know the difference between socialist, communist, and free enterprise. And if they don't know that, then it's pretty bad.
How can they make an educated vote?
They can't. You know that today most students don't know what a socialist is. When we were growing up, socialists were considered to be very bad. Today, the younger generation thinks it's nothing. Well, they won't understand till they get their tax bills that they're going to give their checks to the government. And that there will be no services because there will be no incentive for somebody to go out and make any money. And they're going to say, wait in line, I'll get to you. And you think the lines are bad now, it will be much worse. What do you think, we have a mayor's election. There's a lot of interest in the city right now with this election, am I correct?
There is.
Are you finding voter participation will be higher?
Much higher. That's why one of the reasons we're going door to door to door every single day.
That's what you got to do. I mean, and let me report into you. I was reporting the henchman for Jeff Deal that used to run the city committee, which don't anymore. They had 16. We in Ward 1 have 35 with a waiting list. In Ward 2 we have 15 presently. I went out yesterday and got 15. I'm going to go out today and tomorrow and finish the ward. We have in Ward 3 34. There's one vacancy. Ward 4 I haven't done yet. Ward 5 has 35. Ward 6 has 35. Ward 7 has 35. Some of them will kick out. They were independents, had gone to unenrolled status. They left the party because of the direction it was going in under the former leadership of that party. And you know what? I, for years, don't ever criticize anybody. You know me very well. I never was one to criticize. But I'm going to start taking off the gloves and telling it like it is about people. That the frauds that they are, and how they lie about their personal lives, how they lie about everything. And you know what? And I started today by answering, you heard the program.
I did.
David Heike. And there's so much more. I have a file which was sent to me. He's on wife number 3. He's been married 3 different times. He's tragedy in number 2. but the first one left on her own accord, and he's now on wife number 3, and he's only 50. That talks about a commitment too a little bit. It talks about values. It was a tragedy that wife number 2 passed. She was a lovely person, and it's tragic that she died of a heart attack at a young age. But you know, to allow and not to push back is not going to be my goal anymore. My goal is to tell it like it is and to push people back. When they make misstatement of facts and they're not truthful, then you've got to push back. You know, they'll go after me. I'm sure they'll hit me hard again. But I'm sure that once I file a lawsuit, it will end. And I hope it's going to end in the weeks to come. Because when you do that legally, and you go and you can then depose them on what and who said what, who they talked to, all of it's going to come out. And you're going to get to the bottom of it. Because in the depositions you call them in, they've got to answer questions. If they don't answer those questions, they get a perjury charge. Or if they misstate some facts, you can have them charged for perjury. So, I mean, it is about time to tell it like it is. And, you know, these bullies on Facebook that don't have any life, that just attack you on Facebook, need to be taken down. It is not good behavior.
Somebody on Facebook, we won't mention his names, came to one of our meetings, ate his fill, then complained on Facebook the food stunk, everything was poor. He and his girlfriend really ate, and he started attacking me. So I just went back to him and I said, you know, all I'm getting is criticism from you. Why don't you come and help me? Not a ghost of a whisper, or a whisper of a ghost.
People like that who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones.
Definitely.
People who have pasts shouldn't throw stones. Because anybody that starts looking into them starts finding out things, and they're shocking.
Oh, I have to reiterate on this.
I didn't know that David Heike didn't vote in the the Senate primary.
He also told me he turned down a full commission.
And you can't when you have a criminal record.
That's correct.
And so that isn't true. It's just one misstatement after another. It's like Allen. Look at the official record. When did he vote in the first Republican primary?
Presidential primary, 2008.
That's when he ran against me for state committee.
Yeah.
Allen, did he ever vote in the Republican primary before that?
I don't have it here.
Fraud. Another statement of lies.
And that's his voter ID number.
Right? And all those fraudulent statements what a good Republican he was. He's a great Republican. That's why we're in the majority. People like David Heike. Fraudsters of the word go.
Well, remember,
Phonies.
almost 4 years ago, all they had was 16 members in the entire city committee.
And they raised $67.
Wow.
I mean, he talks the talk but doesn't walk the walk. I mean, come on. Now we're going to file a committee if we have enough time, pretty close to being filled. You know what? And under their leadership, the enrollment dropped in half. How do you know? We went from 6,000 down to 3,500.
Ouch.
People left the party after Jeff Deal ran because they don't agree with his viewpoint on where America should go. Let's tell it like it is. This Democratic takeover of the Republican Party must be stopped. People that are former Democrats in their earlier years do not have core convictions to the principles on which our party were founded. When you're in your 30s and you're sitting on the sidelines and you don't vote, it talks an entire record about you. It talks about your commitment to values. So let's tell it like it is. This is Larry Novak with Alan Green. Alan, going back to school committee.
Okay.
What do you see as the biggest issue facing the schools in Brockton?
The test scores, the bullying, and the idea also of the state taking over the school department.
I am very alarmed that somebody whose wife works in the school department is actually on the school committee.
Well, we also had the retired teacher who was head of the bargaining unit, the school committee member from Ward 3 for many years.
It's time to tell it like it is. It's just not right.
Right.
It's wrong. It shouldn't be, and it should be totally explained.
You have to have people that care for the kids. That's your main.
Alan, at
purpose.
your age, that's all you're running for.
That's right. What do I get to gain?
Nothing. You see,
My son's a chemical engineer. He's a Mensa boy. He made it. It was hard for him for many years until he finally got a job in his field. And he's just climbed up the corporate ladder.
and you're not doing it to benefit yourself,
I'm getting nothing out of it.
and you never will.
No, I'm not here to get anything from me. I want to see as many scholarships given out. I want to see a safe school. I don't want kids scared to go to school. I don't want them being hungry going to school. If you're hungry and scared, you're not going to learn.
Absolutely right. A safe environment is the number one thing that's needed.
If I have to be at the door next to the metal detectors, I don't mind. I'll be there every day.
Right. Well, you're retired now, so you have the time.
Well, I'm not networking to get my company business.
Well, but the thing I think that's more important, I don't know, and I've never looked into it. I don't think he can vote on the budget because his wife is employed.
Is she a school teacher?
I don't know. I mean, I think she is. That's what I've been told. I don't know if she is. I've never known.
But she works for the school department in the city of Brockton.
Right. I mean,
Bingo.
right. I don't think that, I think these conflict of interest laws need to be enforced. There's reasons they were adopted. And I think there's reasons why the people have to tell it like it is now. You just can't if you don't get it out in the public doesn't know it. And you have to expose these things through mailings, in the internet. You have to bring it to everybody's attention. And find out what it is. Now, your goal would be safety first.
Safety, got to feed the kids.
Right.
If you're hungry, if you didn't have a good meal last night for supper and you don't have much for breakfast, what are you going to be able to learn?
I think over 70% of the kids receive free meals now.
Should be 100%. If it's available.
No, it can't be. There are federal guidelines that set up.
I agree, but
Some parents can afford those meals.
yes, those can take care of. But I'm talking about the rank and file in Brockton. They can't afford it.
Right.
So they need the free meal for the kids. Look, my son and I are both hemophiliacs. We had to sue the city of Brockton to get him on Chapter 766 to get a tutor. He was out 105 days one year, 95 days another. They came over the house to give him a blood test, and the phlebotomist nicked the bottom of his vein. We had to cut his jacket and shirt off and rush him to the Norwood Hospital to get blood transfusions.
That's terrible.
We had to fight for that. You're a hemophiliac. I mean, what other words do you need? You're a bleeder. And we had to take him to court.
The city,
doesn't need.
and it's very costly to take them to court now. It's even more money now than it ever was. to get rid of litigation now, probably a couple hundred, probably $100,000. And most people can't come up with that kind of money.
I am thankful to say we had a friend that did it
Pro bono?
pro bono.
Well, you'd have to have done it because the cost of going through that and the amount of time it would have taken. And those were the days where everything wasn't so expensive for lawyers. Insurance, computers, stationery, everything now, internet connections, phone bills that are going out of sight. Those things are very costly.
His tutor was a lady named Mrs. Swirling. She ended up being,
Marsha Smerling?
I never knew her first name. She had back surgery, she told me. She was able to pick something up on the floor just by bending over. It shocked me because I have a very bad back. And she ended up being head of the home school system for the whole city of Brockton. My son, every time he got back into class, he was ahead of the kids in the class in every subject.
Well, that is quite good. And that, after you were able to sue to get that done.
When you miss 105 days, and most of them are in the hospital.
Oh, that's tragic.
Sitting there with IVs pumping into you.
Tragic. And not helpful, but he went on, and now he's very good at what he's doing, and
A head chemical engineer for a company.
that's very good. He's went on to do bigger and better things. We are going to go in the year in review now with Joey.
And we have 3 to report today. The first one is 1825. The Erie Canal opens, allowing direct passage from the Hudson River to Lake Erie. The second one we have is 1958. Pan American Airways makes the first commercial flight of the Boeing 707 from New York City to Paris. And in 1985, the Australian government returns ownership of Uluru to the local aboriginals of the area. And there's a tidbit. On November the 1st, 2017, the Uluru National Park Board voted unanimously to prohibit climbing, with the ban to take effect on October 26th, 2019, today.
This is Larry Novak back with Politically Speaking.
Hold on one second.
This is Larry Novak back with Politically Speaking. We can be seen on YouTube. There will be a permanent record of my response placed on YouTube. So with anybody that wishes to go out, we will be emailing it out to close to 10,000 people shortly, so that they can see the hypocrisy of David Heike. And there will be a permanent record on that. So anybody that wants to go to YouTube, put in the search mechanism, Politically Speaking with Larry Novak, and you will be able to air this. I think it goes on Wednesday after it's gone through the stages to get it up there. So next week we will be joining you again to be discussing the issues of the day. We will be discussing in the state committee fight in the 2nd Plymouth Bristol District, and we will be breaking further news about people's records. This is Larry Novak, and I look forward to talking to everybody next week.